Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the University of Denver's virtual open house. My name is AJ Lee. I'm an associate director of undergraduate admission. Just for some housekeeping information, your chat and your camera functions are going to be off for this presentation. But if you do have any questions or if you want to ask any of our presenters or myself any questions, you can utilize that Q&A box function at the bottom of your screen. So please don't be shy. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, I will get those answered for you either during the presentation or afterwards as well. So please get all your questions answered through the Q&A box. And with that, I have my colleague Jason Kellermeyer on the screen here. If you would like to just introduce yourself, and then we could get the presentation started here. Thank you.
Sure. I'm Jason. I am the main office guy in the School of Art and Art History. So if you ever have any questions about what to register for, how to get into classes, who to talk to about different studios or art history classes, I'm usually the first point of contact for that. What I'd like to do is I've got everybody's favorite thing. I've got a PowerPoint. And I'll just run through what we have to offer at the school and our different facilities. And we'll take it from there. We'll start with my first art joke, which is nice to greet you. It slays. It's always good. So we have 4 undergraduate degrees at the School of Art and Art History. There are 3 that focus on making stuff. There's a BA in art, a BFA in studio art, and a BFA in pre-art conservation. And that's in between making stuff and restoring stuff and knowing the history of it. And we also have a BA in art history. We also have 2 minors, one in studio for making stuff, and then art history, the history of making stuff. So in those studio areas, we're very much a traditional fine art school. So it's painting, drawing, printmaking, photography, sculpture, ceramics. With that being said, we follow the liberal art model. So you would be an art major. I'm seeing my screen isn't showing. Let's try again. Is that working?
Yep, that works.
Okay, great. So what I was saying is we have a liberal art model, meaning that you study art, and if you want to focus on one thing, you can. If not, all the other studios are open to you. And art history is the same way. You'd be an art history major. We do it all. It's a world view from the beginning of time to the present day. Each of our art historians focus in one area, and then they'll spread out a little bit. For example, on the top of this list is medieval. Our medieval scholar is also really into psychedelic poster art of the 60s and 70s. And he recently had a documentary coming out documenting all the poster art. And then we had a show last year of a major poster artist called Lee Conklin. So that was a major life retrospective of that artist that our professor put together. Some of the major questions that I get: do you need a portfolio to be an art major? You do not. If you've been accepted, you should have received from me a welcoming email that tells how to submit a portfolio for scholarship consideration. I encourage you to do that. We have a lot of funds and a lot of opportunities for students to just go through that first step. And it's pretty simple. We're just looking for your best work. You also don't need to be a major to take classes. So we're the art school for the entire university. In fact, the majority of our students are non-majors, so it's a nice blend of dedicated artists and then people that are just interested in the arts. Our studios are open all the time for the students to come in and work, with the exception of sculpture. There's posted hours where you can come in and use the sculpture studio, safety reasons. Nobody's ever cut their thumb off on a paintbrush, but it gets a little trickier when you're using a table saw. And I will say, nobody's ever cut their thumb off in our sculpture studio either. Studying art is a viable career choice. It's a bigger conversation. I usually get that from parents, like, oh, what are they going to do with an art degree? A lot. The way DU's set up is that you can mix and match majors. You can be an art major and then major in something else. A lot of our students build their own niche into something that they see is needed in the world. So they're bringing those creative energies into other disciplines. So if you need a specific list, I can get that for you if you need to like convince parents of anything. Now I just want to go through some of the spaces on campus. We've two main spaces on campus. There's the Schwader Art Building. That's where our main gallery spaces are located. We have a visual resource center in Schwader. There's 2 art history classrooms, ceramics, sculpture, and photography, and a printmaking studio. I'll show you what they look like. This is the Davis Gallery. This gallery is open to the public to use as well as students. There's a submission process where every year they put out a call, and if you have an idea for work that you want to show in that space, you can submit that. And then we also have community members, outside people come in and use this space as well. This is the Vicki Murin Gallery. Right now, the show that's in this space is called Codex Contemporary. I want to make sure I get it right. It's Codex Contemporary Chicana X Codices. And what that means, it's just how people with Latin American descent or storytelling, basically. So it goes everything from like comics to video games, and it's a really interesting show. That's not what's being shown here. I couldn't get a picture of it before. This is an art history classroom. The gentleman pointing at the screen, that's Scott Montgomery. He's the one I was referring to earlier. He's our medievalist. This is our dark room. It's another art joke, but this is what it really looks like. The dark room is slated to be remodeled very soon. It might happen over the summer. What we're going to do is put in some alternative processing spaces, clean up the plumbing. The plumbing is original to the building, so it's starting to show its wear. So right now we do limited work in this space, but pretty soon we'll be up and rolling again with a bunch of different processes. We also have a dedicated photo classroom where we can control the lighting. All this equipment set up for everybody to use. This is our printmaking studio. In printmaking, there are a lot of different processes. This is a good opportunity to kind of explain how things are set up. So some classes are set up with like an intro. There's an intro to the subject, and then it builds from that. For example, photography, there's an intro to photography that covers a little bit of everything. And then after that, we'll do a class in a specific process, like large format or digital or even like Pinhole, where it'll be a subject like building a portfolio. Printmaking's different because the processes are so different. It's always a specific way to do multiples, different printmaking. In this space, we have screen printing, intaglio, lithography, etching and engraving. There's also a laser engraver in this space. It's a very collaborative process too. This is one where a lot of students work together to create work. This is a picture of part of the sculpture studio. We're looking at the wood shop on this side here. So we have woods and metals, and we've done some glass work as well. You're probably wondering if there's a monster in the Schwader Art Building. There is. lives under the stairs. I point this out that there's guerrilla artwork that pops up all the time throughout the buildings. This is just one of my favorites. This is the ceramic studio. We have a glazing room for the ceramic studio in the main ceramic space. You can kind of see outside there, there is something that looks like a garage in the corner. That's where our kiln lives. We also have a soda kiln out there, and they also do raku work. Ceramics is probably the widest range of technology right now because you're dealing with something that's ancient like mud and making stuff. There's a kick wheel in this space for doing hand throwing, but we're also 3D printing with clay and using a CNC machine to create forms to do slip casting. We also have a space that's called Nagel Art Studios, and that houses some 2D stuff, painting, drawing, and foundations. This is, we're looking at one side of our painting studio. Painting's a very open space. It's large enough where we can have class taking place in the studio, and then students can be working in there as well outside of the class at the same time. You can see this mural in the over on the right-hand side. That was done by a student that received a grant. There's a program called PINS, which is Partners in Scholarship. And it started off as like a hard science way, or a way for students to work in the hard sciences, like that would normally be left to like grad students. And they opened it up for creative work. So we've had students propose different projects, and they work with a faculty member and they create artwork. And then one student was doing mural work around town and in the school, and that's one of his pieces. We have a dedicated drawing studio. So this stand in the middle will have live models, figure models in that space. This is just a messy classroom. I took all these pictures in between quarters, so it's like as clean as what this room looks. That's why all the chairs are up on the table. Student lounge area. You can kind of see some of the lockers there. You don't have to carry all your supplies around. We have lockers that you can just use. We also have two locations off campus. There's one called it's the Madden Museum, but DU owns the collection. It was donated to the university. So we maintain that collection. And then west of campus is a space called Hamden Art Study Center. So if work is not being shown right now, it's housed at that space, but it's set up for students to go in and work with art objects. There's a room where you can put a piece on a table and then have a big camera come down to do close-ups so you don't even have to touch the work. Most of all, SAH, that's the School of Art and Art History, is a community, and it's true. The majors and non-majors all together seem to be a pretty tight group. It's just a good place to be. Go back to that. And that was a brief overview. I'm hoping that you have questions, or maybe I was so good I answered all your questions.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Jason. And yeah, if I'll throw some questions out there for you, some frequently asked questions, hopefully, and then hopefully that'll get the ball rolling for our students to just use that Q&A function at the bottom. So in terms of internships, what does that look like for art students around there at DU and around the area?
Yeah, so it's not required for any of our students to have internships. With that said, they do take on internships. Either started out by the student will find out about something that they want to do, or I filter a lot through the office. And we've had students work with local artists in their studios. They've worked on specific projects or with galleries. That's a big one. With the museums in town, we've really good relationships with all the museums. So those are the typical ones, either working with working artists, like professional artists, in galleries or at the museums.
Thank you. We do have a question here. What can new students expect in their first week, well, in their first weeks on campus in terms of integration and student support?
Yeah, so you will start out with something called an FSEM, which is the first year seminar. And that starts before classes start. That's a week before everybody else gets on campus. All the first years come to campus, you move in, you meet with your first year teacher, who is also your first year advisor. And then it's a lot of getting to know the campus, getting to know Denver, how to get around. Depending on the class, they will do something like take a field trip somewhere, dependent on the professor. Like if they've got an area of interest, I will say from my point of view, for our people, it's usually art related. They're going to museums and the galleries and checking out the just different art happenings around Denver. But that could be different with depending on which ASEM you jump into. Those are not ASEM, FSEM. ASEM is a different thing. So your FSEM is done by a full-time faculty member, and it's usually driven by the things that they're interested in. And then they're there to help you navigate and acclimate to life in college.
And is FSEM with fellow art students or?
Yeah, I mean, it's a blend. So you get to pick it. You can see what that faculty member, where their home is, like where they exist on campus, like what they teach. And our FSEMs are usually a blend. It's usually a blend of majors and non-majors.
Yeah, and those FSEM classes are going to be pretty general and all. Yeah, it all kind of depends on what topic that you want to do and what topic the professor wants to do. But yeah, the art ones will have a mix of students
Yeah.
from all different majors and yeah.
And then I let slip the ASEM. It's like the opposite. This is for when you're a senior, a junior or senior. You do the same thing again, but it's more focused on the research and the writing aspects of what you did as a first year student. And they're usually the same faculty are doing FSEMs and ASEMs. So you get this like circle of experience.
A full circle moment. Yeah.
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 Exactly.
And what are typically some or not typical, but what are some of the past research that students have done for their
Yeah,
ASEM?
so the one that comes to mind right away is in the School of Art, Roddy McInnes is our photo professor, and he has done work. His work is in memory, in photography. So he's done that with the first year students where they kind of document their life at that point. And then the ASEM one, he was working with retirement communities. So he was bringing the students into retirement communities and then working with the senior citizens in those spaces. They were taking pictures, going out, taking pictures with each other, and then looking back on like old photographs and how photographs help with memory. It was the memory project. He was also involved in the DU Prison Arts Initiative, where they were
Okay.
going into prisons and incarceration facilities and working with inmates and
Wow.
how
Okay.
they would use photography as part of their rehabilitation process in prisons and just allowing those people that are confined to express themselves and have creative outputs. One of Roddy's favorite questions is like, if your house is on fire, what photograph would you
Hmm.
take first, and then he would have
Yeah.
people come in and like stand with their picture, and then they would photograph themselves holding that picture. Um, and then he did like that real world thing, like in with the incarceration project, is like, what is the picture that the inmates would have with them?
Hmm.
So, um,
Awesome.
yeah.
And I imagine that there's a lot of students that do double major
Mhm.
with art and art history. What are some typical ones that you see students doing with art and art history?
I don't know if there's a typical one because it's so
Okay.
broad.
Mhm.
So if there's different ways to do it too. So anything with a BA in front of it can be a double major. So you could do a BA in art and combine that with English or anthropology or psychology. I see that one a lot, art and psychology, because students are planning to go into art therapy.
Hmm.
And so that's a foundational thing for grad school. Um, art and marketing is a big one. Art with a business minor, I see a lot of. If you wanted to mix letters, if you wanted to do a BA with a Bachelor of Science, with a BS, you can do that too. It's a different process. That's called a concurrent major. And we've had students do that with arts and in the science, like art and engineering. They want both sets of letters. That's called a concurrent major. If the letters are not important to you, and I will admit, on the art side, not so important later on in life. It's your ability and the portfolio that you're building, and that's what you're bringing to it. We have an option called a secondary major. So what that is that you would have your primary major, say like a Bachelor of Science in engineering. You could do a secondary major in art. And that's just how it shows up on your transcript. It'll say engineering, a Bachelor of Science in engineering, secondary major in art.
Awesome. Now, are you able to take multiple different classes such as drawing and photography, or is there like do you have to um uh focus on one type of art, or are you able to kind of dabble in
Yeah,
different
you can
areas?
mix and match and do whatever you want. I will say that art is time consuming. So I will warn against, or like want students to be prepared not to do more than like 3 studios in one.
Mm.
It's just a lot of work.
Right.
That's something to bring up, is that we're different than the majority of the campus. Um, our classes typically meet twice a week for 3 hours, where everything else is a lecture class and it meets twice a week for 2 hours.
Mm.
There's exceptions in both of those. Like I think languages meet every day for an hour.
Mm.
Some of those, your science classes, they'll meet for the lecture twice a week, 2 hours, and then you'll have a lab.
Yeah.
Um, so it gets tricky scheduling around those things. That's why I say don't do more than 3 studios in one quarter. Um, it's so much work. I've had students not listen to me and they do it. They with varying results. But
Yeah.
yeah, you can definitely do, if you can, some things actually work better, like um a figure drawing or painting class, that's going to be almost all in class time work because you're working with a model. There's not going to really be outside work or homework. So like pairing that up with something else that has more work outside of the classroom, those are good combinations.
And so that's 6 hours of class per
Yeah,
studio?
six
Okay.
6 hours for the 10 weeks. So it's 60 hours, 60 hours a class. Um, And the reason for that is because the art instruction is very personalized,
Mm.
where instead of somebody lecturing for 2 hours to everybody all at once in a studio class, there might be like a general demonstration or a talk about a subject matter, and then the faculty member or the instructor is moving around to each individual student. So it just takes a little longer.
Mhm. And I'm sorry if you haven't mentioned this yet or not, but are uh what are your typical class sizes when we're looking at those, not just the studio classes, but just all
Yeah.
the art classes in general.
On the studio side, they're capped at 15. We'll run a class with 8. So that's the
Okay.
range.
Okay.
On the art history side, you won't have a class more than 50 students. We have one for us, a larger lecture room that'll seat 50 students. And then we have a smaller seminar room, which is more like 20. It's the more common number for an art history class is around like 25.
Mhm.
And that'll include undergrad and graduates, typically in the same class.
Awesome. And I know you showed a lot of pictures throughout that presentation. What's some of your favorite spots around the building, or what's your favorite kind of studio that you love, either working in or just seeing and just observing?
Well, I think the I don't want to pick a favorite because then that could come back to haunt me. Like, but they're all what I like about the Schrader building when you approach it and you're coming up to it in the street, it's very much a um institutional brutalism piece of architecture.
Mm,
It's made out of like poured concrete stone and it looks very much like a fortress walking up to it. And the front of the building, the doors are glass, but then it's got these, they almost look like castle arrow slot windows.
yep.
You're like, oh, this is an art building. But when you get into the studio spaces, they're just flooded with light. They're big and open and airy. And it's always this like um surprise, especially when I'm giving actual tours and people will be like, I didn't realize it was so big in here, or so like
Mhm.
so bright. So that's fun. And then I just also like the art that just pops up around the building. The
Yeah.
lobby is dedicated to student work. So we have different classes cycle through and put up work. But then just stuff just pops up around the building. And as long as it's not a fire hazard, I don't do anything. It's just like it just exists there. And then sometimes we'll have somebody, like once we had somebody block doorways with boxes, like,
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, that didn't last long. It was fun, but then we had to take it down. Um uh yeah, there you just find little things in the Nagel Art Studio in the vestibule when you go in there. It's another poured concrete wall, and you can see the exposed rebar holes. And
Oh,
this
okay.
has
Yeah.
been
Hmm.
this has been generational that some buddies, there are more people that do it. They put little dioramas in those holes. So just depending on where you look, you might look in and it looks like a little living room. Like
Hmm.
they made little couches and stuff. So that's fun.
Oh, I love that. Well, I think that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much for the students that. Oh, wait,
I
we
see
have
that.
one more
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. Journey to DU, you get to see me in 3 dimension. I'll be there. I'll give a tour of all the spaces. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Great, great. Last question. Now, yeah, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your night, both to our students and to Jason as well, giving that great presentation. We do look forward to seeing you in future events, and please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us in the undergraduate admission office, or even Jason, now that you got to meet him there. But thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your night. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.